Thank you for watching Hack the File. I'm Michael Lopez, and on today's episode, we're going to be wrapping up the last part of the ethical hacking book series. Enjoy. All right, so we're back, and we're going to be wrapping up this ethical hacking book series. Um, I am not going to do the last chapters because what it does is when you set it up through your VM, this builds off of chapters after chapters, right? And once I got, I would say, pretty far into the chapters, I did so much stuff to the VMs that basically broke them, and I had to redo VMs, and also um, let me see, what am I thinking here? Linux had a problem with their kernel. Apparently, somebody hacked their kernel and messed up or hacked it or some way or something, and because it's open source, and Linux had to stop the upgrades and the updates for a while until they fixed it, and that really put a damper on stuff because that destroyed. I couldn't update my VMs that had all these, um, different things done to them, so I can follow the book. Right? Do you follow me? And so I had to download a new VM. Right when they fixed the problem, I downloaded just a new VM, and then I'm able to update and upgrade everything every time I get back on. So that being said, we're just gonna. I mean, the last of this stuff was basically a culmination of everything in it, anyways, right? So I was on chapter 15, moving through the corporate ladder, and it just basically goes back to the start. Creating a Windows virtual lab, which this is outdated. I've got another book that has a better resource. Shows you how to learn a server. How to set up the server. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna skip the rest of this last stuff. We're gonna wrap this up. Your next steps. Um, it wants you to set up a hardened hacker environment, right? And but I have another book that does this as well, right? For malware viruses. So I might be going over that. But I would say at this point, this stuff is kind of outdated, and it's really a challenge to find um, ways to get it to work. That being said, I could just get a newer book now and have everything working easier because it's new, right? But that's fine. Let's go through the ethical hacking book and let's talk about what we learned. Because I would say, this is what I would say. Going through the book hands-on, getting the hands-on experience is great. That's what we need to be doing, right? If you want to know how to ethical hack, or you want to know how to use computers, you want to know what you're talking about, you want to have some kind of practical experience, or ways to practice. You're going to constantly do these kind of books, right? And then you're going to practice and practice and practice and practice. And what's the old saying? Practice makes perfect, right? And people don't say that because it sounds cool. It's real. Practice makes perfect. The more you do something, the more you practice something, the better you're going to be, right? And that's just a fact. That is not, sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. That's one of those absolute facts, right? Unless, it is, in reality, you practice something, you're bound to get even insignificantly better. There has to be. There's no way you're just gonna suck and do the same thing, have the same skill if you've done the same thing 1,000 times. you're gonna get insignificantly better. So I'm pretty sure that's a fact. Okay, so but anyway, so now let's go to our intro. Let's go through our book and then talk about what we've learned, because um, when you're done with all this stuff and you're done with this book, the main thing you want to do is you want to go back and you want to think about all the stuff that you can do now, or the stuff that you know of, that you've done physically and hands on. That way you can practice them more in other books, or you can see what you like the best, or the stuff that you didn't quite understand. Maybe you can redo it in the book and then go, now I understand it better. So reflecting on a book and all the stuff you learned is a perfect and great way to actually learn what you're doing, right? To learn better. Okay. So setting up so what we learned in this video, and if you want, and then another thing is, this is a recap. So go back to all my videos, and you know go back to the videos and see what I did, right? And then watch them and go, okay. And now you can actually pick which chapter you want to try to find in my videos, and then revisit them. Try to understand them better, because at this point, if you've been following this book series, you need to be able to go back to any chapter and then redo it, and then you'll understand it more. Trust me, because you've gone through the book, right? So we learned how to set up a virtual lab, right? Which I think is invaluable. You need to understand how to set up a virtual lab if you are trying to learn hacking, and or even learn anything about Linux and computers. You're gonna want to know how to practice on these virtual labs, okay? And hardening them is that last chapter, but I have another book for that, so that's why it's okay to skip that last chapter, because I have another book where I'm gonna go over how to make a malware analysis virtual lab off of this book. It's great, and it hardens that virtual machine, and it basically lets you understand how hackers can detect if they're in a honeypot. And if you don't know what a honeypot is, Google it. My famous words. And they can escape from it, right? And you think like, oh, that must be really, really, really sophisticated, really, really hard or something. It's not. It's common sense, and the only way that you're going to understand how hackers escape or detect that they're in some kind of virtual machine or a honeypot or whatever is if you know how to harden them and set them up to where viruses can't escape them and stuff, right? Think about that. So that's the only way you're going to understand how these hackers do that. And then you could probably write your own software or your own malware to detect those things, to detect those signs or flags that they're in a virtual machine, and then it'll escape it, right? So I mean, this is so cool. There's a lot of cool stuff. Anyways, so we learned how to set up all this stuff, right? Command line and looking at stuff. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the second thing we learned. Man, I don't know if I'm getting sick or not. Okay, so ARP spoofing attacks. We learned about ARP spoofing attacks. Now, if you're now we went through this book a while ago. It took about 2 years, probably. Right? So we're finally over with it. We're gonna put it away, and we're gonna focus on another. We're gonna focus on a couple, about 4 or 5 other ones, and try to wrap those up. It's gonna take us a while too, but it's okay. Little by little, right? We learned about ARP spoofing attacks. Now, if you don't remember what they are, you can go back and read this, right? Go back and read this, and buy this book, actually, right? This is a great book. It's still relevant. It still works if you figure it out. And this is a good exercise in fortitude, right? Figuring things out and getting things to work that's deprecated and doesn't work no more. Find other ways. This gave us some ARP spoofing attack commands and tools that we use. DSN, DS, no, D sniff, I think. Yeah, contains several useful tools. Pseudo net discover. This is one that we used a lot. And like I said, the more you use something, the more it gets burned into your brain, and you don't need to reference this book. Well, how do I check what's on the network again? Oh yeah, pseudo net discover. And I used to type in pseudo discover net backwards, and then you're gonna play with stuff, okay? But I remember pseudo net discover. I used that a lot in this book. These are shows you how to app get install Python 3 pip. Now, Python 3 pip, we already know what that is. I mean, we learned about Python 3 pip. How to upgrade stuff, sudo app get install. Now, these are stuff that you might forget. There's app get, there's get app. I don't know what yeah. I'm sure it's app get, just app get, but sometimes I put get app and I get it wrong, and I'm like, I know it's got to be something. It's app get, right? I forget the dash sometimes, and so you're gonna play around with all this stuff, right? And you're gonna after you do this enough times, you're gonna know it. Okay, it's not that you're because you're doing hands-on. All right, analyzing, capturing traffic. Okay, packet and internet protocol stack. Viewing packets in Wireshark. We learned a little bit about Wireshark. Okay, here goes another one. Sudo app install Wireshark. Why is it not app get install? Because if we already have it, I think in Kali Linux, and this is only, we've got Wireshark in Kali Linux. I don't even know why you had to do that, but anyways, so and we learned a little bit about Wireshark, and I think I started a Wireshark series. I wanna get really good into Wireshark, but there's no need for me to get into it right now because I'm not really running a lot of network diagnostics and stuff. Okay. But like if you're in digital forensics and stuff like that, you can use that constantly. You're gonna want to focus a lot of time on that, right? Encryption. We learned about encryption. Cryptography and ransomware. We learned about encryption, and this is a good place to learn about encryption. This one actually has a basic tool that encrypts. Right? Let me see. Yep. OpenSSL, and we're public pair.key, OpenSSL RCA text. So right here we're encrypting something, and then we're unencrypting something, right? Is that what it says? Anyways, this whole section right here is really cool too. There's more tools you can, and then here's the power of going through these books, right? I always say that teachers guide you. Okay, there's a lot of these schools that have these. Now there's a new trend going on where there's schools that are charging 40,000-50,000 a year for students, and there's no teachers. It's just AI. So these students, and this is the new generation stuff, right? These students are going in and they're learning from an AI playing games, and then they have people that go in there and and they're not teaching them, but they're letting the AI teach them, which is fine, right? But I think that's going a little too far. I think you need teachers or mentors or instructors. Okay, those are the three words: teachers, mentors, or instructors. I think every human being needs one of those three in their life, right? You need somebody, a mentor that's going to put you on the right path. I'm just going to mentor you through stuff. You're going to need either a really good teacher, that teaches you really great things, or an instructor that's showing you how to learn and stuff like that. So, I think that teachers or instructors can be all three, right? And they guide you. So the great thing about these books is they're showing you each chapter what stuff entails for ethical hacking, right? So and there's more, right? But this is a basic start where you can start researching on your own, right? Because that modern AI, everybody uses it. Everybody uses Copilot. Everybody uses ChatGPT and all that. A lot of people use it to cheat or whatever they're gonna do to do everything for them, which is not good because you're not learning. And a lot of people use it to learn, right? And that's what it's for. I think is you use it to learn. You could do research on it, and right, because I think it's a better source than Google. Even though I say Google it, I mean like any kind of research it. But so yeah, so now you can look this up. This only gives you one tool. You can look up many tools on how to do this and go deep into cryptography because you have a basic understanding of it. I mean, that's what's just great about it. Okay, so now we'll go to the next one. We learned about the transport layer. We learned a little bit about okay, so this is more. Oh yeah, okay, so a little bit more about networking and a secure socket layer, right? You probably don't know what that is. So this chapter helps you and gets you to learn, right? A little bit about that. Social engineering. So now we're getting into social engineering and stuff, and social engineering is a blanket topic, right? And under an umbrella topic, and it has um, uh, you know email phishing and and like all this social engineering stuff, right? That you're using basically you're using techniques to trick human beings, right? Because human beings is the number one vulnerability in any system, right? Literally, the human being is the most flawed factor in any system. And that's just you can have pour millions of dollars into security, but the human being is the one that's either gonna mess that up or it's gonna either strengthen it, right? So okay, so scanning targets. So we learned about exploitation, fuzzing, right? We learned about fuzzing. And if I'm saying if you don't remember what fuzzing is, you can go back and you can look it up and you can do some research on fuzzing, right? I did this fuzzing in school and I did a project and it worked, but then I didn't really understand what it was. So and to tell you the truth, I still don't understand. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not here. I don't know everything. I still don't understand how we can use fuzzing in hacking, right? And I did it again in this one. So yeah, so if you guys want to learn more and practice more about fuzzing, then I would do so, right? And so I have an idea what fuzzing is. I just don't understand how we can use that to hack stuff. But I mean, you could get more into it, like I said, right? And like I said, I don't know everything, right? I'm not gonna pretend like I do. There's and I'm human like everybody else. There's things that I really take to, and I really understand. There's some things that I don't, and then I just bypass it or I learn the gist of it, and then I just keep going. Um, if you really have a not a I would say like a tick, then you're probably one of those people that's got to really understand something to the fullest before you move on. And I'm gonna tell you right now, that's gonna hold you back for a long time. My philosophy is this: you need to understand the most important things of something you're learning, and you need to understand those well. Especially if you're getting into a niche market or a niche. I'm sorry, a niche area or niche section or something, right? So electrical engineering technicians is what I teach, right? I teach at a community college, electrical engineering technicians. I teach them how to. The most important thing about that degree, it's a 2-year degree. The most important thing about that degree is they need to understand how to figure out how to troubleshoot something, electrical problems, issues, They need to understand how components and electrical things work. And they need to know how to communicate and understand symbols and read schematics. So there's a lot of important things, but there's some things they'll I don't really go deep into because they're gonna learn that on the job, right? It's not one of the main things, right? But there's a lot of students that say, "Oh, I don't know. I need to understand this to the fullest." And can you help me? And I help them, and then they're like, "Well, can I retake this test?" And because you passed the second test, it's more advanced than that, and you aced it. Why are you worried about going back to something more basic? Oh, because I want to understand, clear what I'm doing, and I understand that, but sometimes you need to revisit that later, okay? And so you understand it, you get it, you haven't mastered it, but then you can move on to something else that's more important, and then revisit that later, okay? So I said that twice, just so you understand that I'm not saying that whatever, anything negative about people. I'm just saying sometimes you can revisit that. Okay, so building Trojans. So we learned how to make some malware. Now this was the funnest part that I had in this book. I'm not gonna lie. Um, um, we learned on how the antivirus software works, right? And this is an ELF file, right? Because you see the little ELF right there, little ELF file. Anyways, and we learned how to read it. We learned what kind of type of file it is. We learned how how the antivirus detects it. We learned how to evade it. And this was really cool. And that's what MS Venom does. It goes in and it just basically messes with the data so it can't be detected. Hold on, I'm gonna take a bite out of my breakfast. Anyways, let me hold on. I gotta. Yeah. So I just ate some breakfast. I had to come back. So we learned how to hide. Well, a Trojan basically it's based off of the Trojan War and ancient Rome or whatever, where they sent in the Trojan horse and it was a trick just to get into the castle and it had fighters in it. Anyways, so this book showed us how to make a Trojan malware, basically hiding malicious code in Minesweeper. Now, if you know, Minesweeper is an old game that used to come standard on a lot of Windows PCs, and I think it still does. But it actually worked, except we couldn't get it to execute, right? And I think the reason why I couldn't get that to execute is because I didn't have permissions set on the environment on the victim, right? The Ubuntu server victim that we had set up, and that's one thing this book doesn't tell you. Okay, it's missing that. You do need to figure out on your Ubuntu server. You do need to figure out what permissions you have, all right, and what you actually have installed on it that works. Because usually, like Linux and Ubuntu, it comes with just the basics installed. So in this case, I think that we needed to have something active or something installed that a normal victim would have, right? But that's another thing. You don't know if something's going to work because you don't know what their system has activated, especially if it's Linux, right? Anyways, I don't know. So, but we still built it and it was fun. Okay, and we learned a lot about Trojans. Okay, each one of these topics, like I said, you can go and research these on your own in depth more. That's what's so cool about this. We also learned about building and installing Linux rootkits. Okay, so we learned about rootkits, and this is one that I want to follow up more on. These two, well, a lot of chapters in this book, but this one is I want to follow up on this. Okay, um, this is a rootkit. We learned about rootkits, and I would like to learn more about it. SQL injections. We learned about SQL injections, and select first name, last name from user. This is more stealing and cracking passwords. So this is more web based stuff. So SQL injection is web based techniques. Okay, stealing passwords from websites databases. We learned how to set up. What did we learn on this one? We learned the Metasploitable website, which is freaking awesome for practice. So Metasploitable IP using SQL map. We learned a lot of website hacking techniques, right? Building a salted hash cracker. You don't know what salted is, you got to Google it and look it up. Because and you don't know what a hash is, you can come back here and do some reading on what a hash is, right? And like I said, that's what's so cool about cybersecurity. You literally have so much material that you can learn. It's not like it's one and done and all right, I mastered that. No, you could go deep into encryptions and encrypting and hashing and Python and all that stuff, right? Tools, and I mean, you go on and on. It's just never ending. Okay, what else did we learn? We learned about cross-site scripting. So this is more web stuff, cross-site scripting, and we learned how to use. Let me see what it says here. Basically, XSS is cross-site scripting, and it gave us a couple techniques, and they even give us a bug bounty program website. And basically, it's hacker1.com, and this one was fun too. And a lot of pen testers, they do a lot of this. They're pen testing people's websites because that's where the money's at, right? I mean, if you've got, a lot of people don't know how to protect their website. So put it this way, I know how to make my own website, right? I know what sites to look at to get my own domain name. I can for cheap, and then I know how to get the server, an online server for my website for cheap, really cheap. And I know how to create the stuff, import stuff, and I can do it the hard way and the long way. But you still need to know how to protect that, because you can do all that and you'll put that website up, and I guess the server that you're using, would have security. Okay, so let me make it more realistic. Let's say I have a NAS unit, or so I have my own network, I have my own server. I can actually do that. I can create my own website and and put it on my NAS unit or my server. Then I would still know, I need to know how to protect it, right? So I need to know how to protect the back code, all the stuff I'm using for the website, Bootstrap or whatever the hell I'm using. I would still have to know how to protect it, because there's people that know how to, know how to hack it, right? And they can. I've seen a website where I was checking up this martial arts place here in Idaho and Rexburg, and I said go to this website. I go to the website and it was hacked. It was cool. It wasn't. It's not cool because it's messed up for the owner. I mean, if it happened to me, I'd be pissed, right? He did it himself. Probably had it on his own server, and it took him a long time to do it. But he didn't know how to protect it, obviously. And it literally said this site has been hacked by, and it had the hacker's name, right? It's terrible. Some terrible shit. And pardon my French. And the dude still had it running, right? He still had his website on up. He could have shut it down and stuff like that, but I mean, it was taken over, right? So, um, that that that's a very important part of it too, right? So you need to know how to protect that stuff. Okay. We learned a little bit about that cross-site scripting and stuff, and I'm sure he used some of these techniques. All right, let's see. He probably had a terrible code and password and all that stuff. Anyways, Python. We learned about Python and what you need?
Your keys.
Why?
You have allergy pills in your car?
Right here. We learned about Python, how to do a Python server for listening purposes, to listen back. Close that door. To listen back for stuff. That was my son. I just want some allergy medicine. That's great. Python server.py or whatever. This is actually a proxy.py. So we learned about bots. Now moving through so we learned a lot. We moving through the corporate. This would be one that you would want to practice, but a lot of the stuff I couldn't get to work because I got halfway through and I could have got all the way, but like I said, the Linux had a problem. I couldn't update, so I couldn't download half of this stuff. Couldn't get it to work. Half of it was deprecated. And when I got a new virtual machine, I had to go back and install all this. It would just take too long just to get through this. So, but it's basically a culmination of everything we learned in the whole. So why would we want to do this? This is great practice because it's more practicals, right? So we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and this is how you would escalate through the corporate ladder, right? Theoretically, okay. This is cool practice, but it's you don't know what sequence in the attack where you would have to revert back to something else, and so this is just giving you an idea. But if I would have been able to get it all to work, it would have been great. Okay, but anyways, that's it. That's the ethical hacking book series. We learned a tremendous amount on the beginner level for this. This is a beginner level book, I would say, and I think it's a great book. Go get it. It's worth $20. I think it's probably cheaper now. It's still relevant because of the way they teach it. And like I said, if some of the tools are deprecated, Google what new tools there is. Ask if it's deprecated. When you're going through these books, the main thing that I learned about this book is, or learning from a book is, the main things I've learned already from all these books is, if something is deprecated and it doesn't work anymore, if you're trying something and it's not working, and you've done everything you can, that's the main thing I learned about this in this book, is you're doing everything, you're rewriting the command, you're making sure it's correct, because a lot of people, when they're first starting to do Linux commands or command line anywhere in any system, they don't know if they're doing it right. You don't know if it's case sensitive. You don't know if you need to put a space somewhere, and you're gonna learn all that by doing that, right? So that's one main thing I learned. Second thing is, once you've done all that and it's still not working, then I would look it up to see if it's deprecated. See if they don't use it anymore. See So once like I said, I had 2 days working on something before I looked it up and found out it was deprecated, and I went, oh man. So then it took me another 2 days to find out what the replacement was, and I finally got it working with the replacement. And it'll tell you too. You can look it up and it'll say, no, the Linux is no longer supporting this. Doesn't mean you can't still use it. You can figure out how to use it, because I did that too. I figured out how to still use it, right? And it was old, deprecated, nobody was doing anything with it anymore. But I still figured out how to use some tools and techniques. But that took even longer. So, but all that is valuable experience, right? And that's what this book taught me. It taught me to figure it out. You know, you're nobody's gonna hold your hand, especially in a book. Who am I gonna talk to? Myself? I have, and thank God for modern AI and modern Google and all that stuff. Because if it wasn't for that, then you'd be stuck indefinitely, unless you got lucky, right? Because how are you gonna know if something is deprecated? How are you gonna know if they don't use it no more, right? You have to have some kind of information and knowledge to tell you that, where you can just go, okay, move on. What did they do to replace this? And that's why in this modern era, it's so much easier to learn and to figure things out and get things to work, because you have so much information at your tips. Okay, that's my other advice. Um, you know, there's no cheating in learning from a book by using AI or anything like that. Doesn't make any sense. You're filling in the holes of knowledge and gap that you're taking from online information. It's like having an old school encyclopedia or something, right? When I was younger, we had a Encyclopedia Britannica that was 300 books, and I grew up with Encyclopedia Britannica, and our everybody had one, right? For a while, I guess they were hot, and it was just a bunch of books of knowledge. And so if you didn't know something, you went to your encyclopedia and you grabbed the letter and you looked it up, and you had your answer, right? But every year, or I don't know, every 5 years, every 10 years, they came out with a new version, because there's new information, so they had to redo everything. So those books were expensive. They were like $500 for the whole series. They were expensive, and I remember you'd lose some, and we were missing letters, and all kinds of stuff. But anyways, now you got all that, boom, at your fingertips, right? So use it. Um, do I feel like I can hack something proficiently? Nope. Not after this book. Not after this book. Just one time through. Maybe if I went through this about 4 or 5 times, I would feel I would be able to do some basic malware creation, Trojans and stuff. I would be able to maybe do some fuzzing or whatever is said in there, because that's easy. I'd probably be able to look around for vulnerabilities in a website or a victim, or something, right? And maybe initialize the attack, or come with. I would be able to come up with a strategy, and if my target was completely vulnerable in all ways, had no cybersecurity, then maybe I'd be able to hack it. Because it shows you how to use John the Ripper tools, and maybe if they had maybe if these guys were just targets sticking out like a sore thumb, they had bad passwords, easy passwords, and stuff like that. Yeah. But me as somebody that would come up with some ideas to hack somebody, I have so much different knowledge and ideas, and degrees and stuff, that I would use it all, right? But if I wasn't, and I was just basically going off of this book, you would have a basic idea of what to do, though, right? And you would have a basic idea on how to protect your system. So yeah, all in all, it's a great book. It's this I would say is the one that I would start with first, because it teaches you how to set up the environment, it teaches you how to practice, and it teaches you all the concept. I think this is a great book. So well worth my time. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm glad to put it away. Now, if I need to reference this sucker, I can go back. But I finished it. I can go back, and I can look up these topics more in depth in other books or other resources. So, all right, that was the Ethical Hacking book series, and this was Hack the File. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time.